the salary cap went up, which was
what?
Which was shocking.
You mean it's more money than it was last year?
And it's more than what they thought it was going to go up.
Really?
Again, I can't believe it.
Wow.
It's almost like it's not real.
It's unbelievable.
We'll start with this question from Robin.
So there's still a damn good defense.
I have zero problem with them bringing this guy in.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus channel presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fetes. I am Jenna Cottrell. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And welcome to the latest episode of You Ask, We Answer, presented by Stellar Roofing, Windows, and Siding. Up ahead for this team, as in you guys, as well as the Buffalo Bills and the rest of the NFL, will be the Combine in Indianapolis. So you guys are going out there, and I want you to kind of set up what do you expect to see and what is the Combine like?
Yeah, I think most importantly, it's about picking the right steak and the sides to go with it at Elmo's. Would you not agree?
100%. 100%. That's all that really matters.
That's what matters. Now, besides that, which is like way up here, I think people have a misconception of what the Combine is. They see what you will see on TV later in the week. They now moved it more to daytime stuff. It was at night for a while. Sprints, weightlifting, all the other stuff, throwing with the quarterbacks and all that. Yeah, that's fine. That's important to a level. Teams look at it in a different way. The biggest thing for me is this is when everybody in the NFL is together. Agents, general managers, players. Well, it's the future players. The current players don't really show up at this. Coaches, everybody. This is when a lot of talking goes on.
Yeah.
Because what's the first thing that happens? Free agency. Making decisions on your own guys, how much free agents are
But they're
worth.
not allowed to talk. They're not. That's what you're leading our audience into believing.
Oh, that there is like
this, the real
pre-tampering.
Yeah, there's tampering to the legal tampering.
So the idea being, if I'm talking to an agent about my player, and let's just make an example, Rasul Douglas is free agent.
Yeah.
So he's a Bills player. So they can talk to his agent.
Correct.
That agent might have other players.
He might.
Maybe.
So in the conversation, maybe at Prime, having a drink.
Yeah.
Elmo's having dinner.
Yep.
Does another player come up? Do they get a general idea? Now, I really don't believe they are negotiating salaries on players. They can only push that so far. But there is a lot of talk that goes on.
But it's also the talk is also, hey, this team's more interested. Hey, we're really interested in your guy. And then all of a sudden, whether it's the price goes up on players, things like that. So yeah, it's the center of the NFL world shows up at St. Elmo's. That is what is the next week. And Izzy's in the all the places like that.
Harry and
Izzy's like that is where all this happens. So the underwear Olympics aspect of it is minute compared to all of the other conversations. And I think that's the big thing too, is when we talk to Bean and McDermott is understanding it is an imperfect science of trying to evaluate a 20, 21-year-old and how they will project as they mature and grow into what an NFL player is. But I want to know, maybe want to know what you guys think about it too, is the fact of what have you learned from the ones that haven't hit, and understand what changes you have made from Bean coming to his first combine to now his 8th or 9th, and understanding, hey, this is where I have missed. This is why I've missed. And this is where I can make the adjustments to hopefully not miss next time.
Would love to get an honest answer. I don't know if I were a GM, if I, it's all about growth, obviously, but I would love to hear like how they do evaluate and when do they start evaluating the players? Like, cause obviously the draft class this past year, a lot of those guys did not get into the lineup and the game day rosters, all this stuff. Like, how do you evaluate these players and what have you learned? Because I think that is an honest question as someone who, and Brandon Beane's been in the position long enough to have trends, to have picks, to have successes, and to have failures. And that's a piece of what every GM has. So I do think that would be a question. And you guys, that's something else. You guys get to talk to Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott.
Yeah, I think they're pretty good about their general thoughts on players. We know culture is important. We know the type of player. Look, if you get a player that doesn't want to work and isn't going to work hard and isn't coachable, Nobody wants that guy. It is hard to get a player that is so talented that he supersedes everything.
I agree with Mike. You look skeptical, but
now, Dan, I will tell you, in this case, flip the cup around. Dan is wrong. You can't be talented enough. Josh Allen is very coachable and he is team oriented. There are guys in this league who have a lot of talent. It may work for a period of time. And if they aren't adaptable to what the team wants to do, it will not work.
I think there's a fine line between fit and also you also have to understand like where more of the player. So if there is tape or if there is things that you see that you don't like on that, understanding why that tape is out there and understanding part of it.
I think we're talking about two different things here. I'm not talking about the perfect player. I'm not talking about a player that doesn't have flaws.
You're talking about
I'm
attitude.
Yeah, attitude, work ethic, coachability, all those things. Every team in football, you need that so badly. A guy has to be ready to play the way you want to play, especially like we talk about this defense evolving. What makes defenses so good? Smart, coachable players with physical ability to use them in different ways, to be adaptable week to week. It's what the Chiefs have done. We all talk about this with the Chiefs. They make adjustments, have made them week to week, and then they can play it a certain way. I'm saying is, I think you have to stick to that. You can make some exceptions, but what's the line about exceptions?
Go ahead.
You keep making exceptions and you have a team full of exceptions.
Yes.
So yes, there are certain skill sets that you're just going to say, I love this. I love this. But that player still has to be able to play in your system.
I think more than anything, what is the most valuable thing that any team gets out of this trip to Indy is those 15-minute windows where you get to talk to players.
Yeah.
I think that is where you understand, and maybe it is half your personal side in understanding who the person is, and then it's what can you do on a whiteboard? What can you do in understanding those concepts, and how will that translate to what the Bills organization, because we're not in the building, but understanding how that relates. I think some of those are the most fascinating parts that will come out of this, whether it was, Brandon and Sean having that moment with Keon when, it's the fun loving, like, I'm Tiger, wish I could like those kind of moments is where you see if it's a fit.
Yeah.
But I'm not as worried about, I especially think in today's day and age, like the college world and the landscape is so crazy and chaotic compared to what it used to be about players transferring. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're soft or that they didn't want to work at one school. And so that's where I think there is a fine line of understanding more about the player than what you see the athletic traits on the field. I think that has to be a part of it. But if there is a red flag, I think that's where those conversations
it's like speed dating.
It absolutely is speed dating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think someone like Ray Davis, a guy who transferred essentially every year of his college career, you might say, oh, this guy is not loyal, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
He didn't want to, but it's like he was chasing the opportunities that got him the exposure to get drafted, you know, going from a Vanderbilt, like things like that.
It is wild. Transfer not that long ago was like a
dirty word,
red flag.
I think of the dichotomy between the NFL and the college world right now, where NFL is, it's about the team. It's about how you fit the team. It's about doing everything for the team. And college is, you are a brand. you are, it's you, and then how you kind of fit into your team, and you just do whatever you can for you. It's just completely different. Why'd you laugh?
I do think it makes it tougher to evaluate those players.
I agree.
100%.
Because you're saying, especially at certain skill positions, like a player's ready to leave a good program, like say in Alabama.
Yep.
Like you'd think before, who's transferring from Alabama to go to another school, but he wants to play. He's going to start. Maybe the fit isn't perfect, but they're offering me $4 million.
That's it. It's
so
not
I'm going to go there.
I want to play. It's I want to make $5 million.
Well, the idea being if they're going to pay you that much, they're probably going to play you.
They are no longer amateur athletes that are coming into the NFL that are looking for a chance. Like I always remember back last year, it was starting to be around this time that like Caleb Williams wants stake in a team, like that his dad is mad. He wants ownership. And you're sitting there like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
That's the world now that the NFL, we always talk about how the NFL has to adjust to what college is producing for it. It's why the NFL is much more spread option type football, spread it out, because that's what college is doing.
Yeah.
So you do have to adapt to these type of players. It's a new age college athlete that is coming to the NFL. And how do you balance that of, hey, you're making more than 20% of our team. You've already made more. Like, how do you balance that while coming in with the work ethic and all of those things? The plus that I think the Bills have and what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have built is a solid locker room.
Yes.
So it's kind of like when the Eagles drafted Jalen Carter. Had off the field issues.
Right.
Major concerns. Should have gone number 1 overall. Didn't. Fell to 10. But the Eagles had a locker room that was equipped to handle somebody like that.
Yes.
So that is also where I'm with you. I'm not saying draft every knucklehead that has played at school. I'm saying is understanding, hey, this guy, look at this game. He took plays off, because there will be clips of every single player of their lowlights. It's what they've done with Luka, right? There's look at Luka not playing defense. He's a traffic cone. Well, you didn't see the other plays where he was amazing too.
Yeah.
So balancing that, I think, is the toughest thing about evaluating. And can your organization weather that?
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think the Bills have done a good job in creating that culture that is willing to take in new people and withstand, because of the core that you have there, what that represents. I just also just thinking about it now, I wonder how much that does hurt the development of players coming out. Like long term, if you're Brandon Beane, if you are like, guys just aren't where they used to be because they're constantly changing systems, they're constantly working with different people, like how much of an effect we will see. Because now you talk about how, for some teams, like I think of the Eagles, how some of those guys that they drafted this season, immediate impact players on that team. Whereas
the wild one, I'm sorry, I was going to say, the wild one is Quinyon Mitchell.
He's not,
because he played at Toledo.
Yes.
And a lot of people believe he will be the last guy ever drafted high from a mid-major school.
Sure.
And Nick Saban talked about it. It's like, he was number 1 on our list. Like, we wanted him to transfer.
Mm-hmm.
He decided, I'm going to stay at Toledo. He did. He got drafted in the first round, came right in and played. He showed himself at the Senior Bowl, but he came in and worked that way. Not every player is able to do that. And I go back to, and we've talked about it, Terrell Bernard coming into the NFL, said his head was spinning, but that doesn't mean the talent and the work ethic aren't there. Sometimes it just takes a little while, and it is worth the wait, which is where the danger is when you think about filling holes with rookies, right? Because just because Terrell Bernard was I won't say a nobody as a rookie, special teams, had a couple of moments, but he didn't look like the guy he would become, doesn't mean that's a bad draft pick. It just means, like, sometimes it takes a little bit. So if they believe that guy is a worker and that guy...
I thought I was going to sneeze. I'm sorry.
That's right. If that guy is a worker...
Interrupt Mike.
...and can fit in our system, then that's the type of player you have to pick.
And Jenna, off of your point, which I think is a great point, I think it makes it tougher because you're getting a smaller sample size of, say, a player was at a pro style offense and then they went to a team that was much more spread. How does that, or a defense that a guy was playing the one technique of the defensive tackle on a 3-4, and then he's playing a different one because he went to a new school that played a 4-3, things like that. It's like, okay, do I think which player am I getting? And also seeing it and saying, hey, he showed flashes in that.
Yeah.
I want him in that. I'm not asking for, maybe his production was down last year. That was one of the reasons I liked Jordan Addison, was because he was great at Pitt. And I was like, hey, they aired it out. Like, and then he went to USC. The team wasn't as good. They didn't have a good offensive line, and his numbers weren't as impressive. And he was injured a little bit, but I'm going, hey, what he did at Pitt at the time was really impressive.
Yeah.
So kind of, I imagine it's way more difficult. And that'd be a great question for Beane, of like, how do you evaluate the juggling of players through in and out systems and in and out of organizations at college?
Yeah. Ask him that, because I am genuinely curious how much that does change things, because it's already hard enough to try to evaluate a player and then project where they're going to be, let alone now when you don't have the as reliable of tape, because there's so many variables that weren't existent in games and in players before.
Because every player in college is a free agent.
Yeah, it's just how it works.
Brutal.
It's wild.
I can't imagine any NFL coach wanting to go, I'm going to go back to college.
Yeah, completely.
and have to constantly recruit your players not to leave because, like you're talking about the development, you invest all these things. It's kind of like what Bean has talked about too when he's talked about the practice squad. Like when they get poached off, it's like, yeah, you're pissed. Like you invest time and money and resources and coaching and all these things into it. And other team's like, yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just hampered by numbers game.
And the Bills are in that spot because they have a really good roster. So there isn't always a lot of space for those guys. And if you're another team, you're like, we like the way they develop those players, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit of you're using somebody else's minor league system to grab a player.
Yeah, no, it's true. All right, let's get to some of the questions.
Yep.
That was a long-winded answer about the combine.
Yeah, that really was.
It does make the
I
point.
had a couple questions.
It does make the point that we talked about the importance of getting to know these players and getting a little sense of them. And then when they do their visits or at their universities, because you really do need to know. And I'm not saying it's a negative. If you're the player, like that's the way you're going to approach this thing, and you need to. But the question is, for an NFL team, how does this guy fit into what we're trying to do?
Yeah. All right. The first question from Captain America. Do you think Bean makes a move to get one of the top pass rushers rumored to be on the trade block, i.e. Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, or does he make a move in the draft to get someone like Kenneth Grant to help Groot and Oliver? Thanks again, guys and gals, for the coverage you provide.
Yes to a free agent. I think that Bean makes a move. We've talked about it on several of our podcasts, several of our videos. I think it's one of those guys. I think it's one of the 5 guys that we've talked about. I think he does make a move and understand it's a game of inches and how much one player could absolutely, it's not necessarily going all in, but I don't know if you guys heard this. The salary cap went up, which was shocking.
You mean it's more money than it was last year?
And it's more than what they thought it was going to go up.
Really?
Again, I can't believe it.
Wow.
It's almost like it's not real.
It's unbelievable. I, for one, was totally stunned when they came out and said, hey, the TV numbers were really good. Teams are making more money than they thought. Because I thought,
wouldn't that be nice? Because I always have that.
Because these owners are there's just no money.
Yeah.
These owners just crying poor. It is just so tough to own an NFL team that just prints money. It's so challenging. There's our open. But yeah, I think he makes a move in knowing the salary cap. And I also understand too, everybody gets more money. So it's great for Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, all these guys, that the new deals that they will get. Every team now has more money in their pocket. The New England Patriots have the most cap space. It's also how wisely you spend your money, but it's not real.
Yeah.
Salary cap isn't real.
That's
the salary
true.
cap is not real.
That is true. Also, though, Mike, this draft does have a lot of guys that defensive line wise, there does seem to be a lot of depth. And this segues into a question from Turtle115. Who are some players that the Bills should keep an eye on at the combine?
Let me start with this. I think interior defensive line or players that can play multiple spots on the defensive line can be more impactful than just an edge rusher. I think the game has changed.
So you're saying versatility?
Versatility, no. I'm talking about impactful from the inside more than impactful from the edge.
Okay, I see what you're saying. More pressure up the middle.
Pocket.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like no way. It's like the Eagles did it for one game, and everybody's like, "Holy cow!"
Well, they did it all season, and they do have that guy. But
they
a guy like
football,
Milton Williams is a stud, and he's a free agent. He's going to get a lot of money. I would only warn people, as good as I think he is, it's nice to be playing next to Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. To get that attention. But defensive tackles, pushing the pocket, disrupting what a team's going to do, I think are more impactful than defensive ends. Now, that being said, Myles Garrett is a freak of nature and is better by far, I think, than the rest of those guys. They're all good. Crosby's good. All Watts are good. The Bosa's are good. All those guys. Name them all. Myles Garrett may be just that guy above and beyond, but I don't think the Bills are. I think it's going to be tough for them to get him. And I
flip-flop on this.
No, I'm saying to you is I think you could do it. Part of the reason
snap.
It depends on who you're going up against. The Bills are drafting 30th. Like a team that Cleveland Browns need draft capital.
Yeah.
And so sometimes people are like,
The
throw
Cleveland
in-
Brown they need everything.
They do, but if they're dealing with a team, if they're dealing with a
Absurd.
team that has a top 15 pick or a top 12 pick or a top 10 pick, that's a lot more valuable to them than the number 30 pick.
It's fair.
That's, I think it puts the Bills at a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of creating. Now, again, maybe we see that there aren't as many teams going after Myles Garrett if he's out there. I don't know. I'm saying is that would be nice to have Myles Garrett. He would be awesome. But I think it's going to be tough. I think it's a tough buy for the Bills because of where they are in the draft.
Yeah.
Counterpoint. Would an edge rusher that the offensive line has to adjust to make it easier for interior linemen to get pressure when you couldn't just, when you double Myles Garrett on every play? Doesn't that prevent more one-on-ones?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm saying
so there's more than one way to get pressure interior than, right?
Just having a guy in the interior.
Yes. I'm saying is teams adjust a little bit to outside pressure, defensive end pressure. They chip, they add another blocker on the outside. It is a little bit different in that way because of the quick offenses and what the Chiefs have liked to do, which is to try to get the ball out quickly. So that's the only reason I look at it and say the Bills said, we're all in. We want to go get Myles Garrett. Okay. Draft capital wise, I think it's tough. I do. I just don't. I mean, like,
well, then who are the guys that you?
I mean, these guys. I looked at. I would say one thing. You could about like Derek Harmon of Oregon, Alfred Collins of Texas, Deion Walker. All these guys. I'm looking at players that are bigger. You got Ed Oliver in there. These are 340, 320, 310.
340.
Like you need
big old boy
people that. Obviously, it's nice to have every trait like we talked about. But you need bigger players.
Yeah.
You just
especially next to an Ed Oliver.
Yes. Who's like
and
undersized.
to open things up for Terrell Bernard to make plays.
And the Bills have tried. They have signed Linval Joseph. They have brought back Jordan Phillips 2 different times because of just physical size of standing there is alone an impediment to the offensive line. I have been banging on the table of like Daquan Jones didn't have the weight and size that he had before tearing his bicep or pec, like all of those things. I'm a fan of that. And you made the point about the defensive line being deep in this class. I don't know if I would necessarily the impact that a rookie defensive tackle, whether it's 30 or wherever, I think there is a ton of value. We haven't gone through this. We were just on the Always Game Day in Buffalo podcast. And I'm not at the point yet of breaking down all of these players and learning about 50 different players that will never play for the Bills and at that point yet. But if this draft class for defensive tackles is as deep as everybody is saying it is, I think there's value in finding one in the 3rd round and not having to do it right now at this point, or spending the 30th overall pick on a defensive tackle.
Interesting. I only say interesting because I see what you're saying, where there is so much depth and that you can find other guys in other rounds later on. But it is such a need for this team that obviously the thought process is the higher the pick, the better quality talent pool you are drafting from.
Yeah.
There was also another question that I thought was pretty interesting from Ricky Criffield 5088. Do you think they release Von Miller? We've talked a lot about Von Miller. We've talked a lot about the early success and the later failures. Obviously, that is a very expensive contract. He's entering year 856 in the league. Sorry.
Look, if you get Myles Garrett and you're making a deal, Von Miller's gone.
I think he should be gone either way.
I don't disagree with you. I think they have to look at it in terms of, well, this is where you'll get the honest appraisal of what they actually thought he brought to the team this year. If it's what we think, then I don't think there's any question he would be gone. Because I just don't think it was for that amount of money. For that amount of money, there's no way his
production matches value.
Not even close.
Let's say he's like, I will rework my deal.
That could happen.
What is, yes.
I mean, he's a $10, $8, $9 million player.
You know what's funny about it is the question is not just for Von is what would I go down to and what's out there for me if I leave?
Yeah,
I don't know what the market would be
Well,
for him though.
That's
what they would say when
fascinating.
players restructure contracts and they're like, wow, he's so nice. I can't believe he did that for the team. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, he realized that if I get cut, which is what they're pretty much saying, restructure or we're cutting you, and then going, oh, shoot, I'm probably not going to make what I would make here on my restructured deal as I would make in the open market.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't know what market there is for a 36-year-old edge rusher that is coming off of 7-6 sacks and is coming up 2 ACLs and entering his 97th year in the league.
Yeah, he is what you would like to see out of Javon Solomon.
Yes.
For
Yeah.
a
Production. If we're just
quarter.
talking production.
Yes. And that's what I think they would see that kind of role for Solomon this year.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to bite the bullet on those things. If I'm saying right now, based on everything and what this team needs to do, I'm saying he's not on the roster this year.
Potential
I
out
agree.
in 2025. So it would be a $15 million dead cap hit. The cap hit, if he's on the roster in 2025, is 23 million.
Dead cap hit. With,
Dead cap hit would be 15 million.
So, and post June 1, they can probably
Kick it down the road.
split at least that because cap will go up again.
It will.
Yeah.
Unless there's a global pandemic, then it will go up, but just not as much as they thought it would go up.
Let's not put that out there with the bird flu.
Easy.
Let's just chill. Let's just chill. Got a wedding we got to get through.
So
Let's
are we all on board with thinking, or do you think differently?
If he, at this point, if the deal gets worked out that it's a team friendly, lower cost thing, I don't think it's the worst thing to have him that he can come in on some.
This
play.
is,
I mean, I'm not like, wow.
This is you being like, but Jerry Hughes is nice. Like,
No,
Jerry
I don't
Hughes, like
even-
he's been around. Like,
No, I honestly think Jerry Hughes to me added more value. If I'm being completely
correct.
honest.
If Von Miller didn't have his resume, the player he is now, and more often than not in the NFL,
Yeah, he'd be
you
gone.
get paid for what you're going to do, not what have you done. I don't see how you can continue to keep Von around and thinking that all of a sudden he's going to reinvent himself to the player he was post another surgery, post another injury. We just haven't seen that player. And so it's hoping in one hand and crapping in another and seeing which hand fills up first.
How many times are you gonna get hit in the face with a sack of shit before you start to smell?
Now, what was
something?
nice there is you both used the lines that you've come up with.
Yes.
Because what I was
That
going to
was my
say
dad.
before that, I know, but you brought it to
Yeah.
the Buffalo Plus table and
Yeah.
you brought your line. But when you guys repeat things that I've said, it warms my heart because I've said these things so many times. Like you get paid for what's
That's
Oh, yeah.
fair.
what's
That's
next
fair.
because we see it. It is the truth.
Baseball's the exact opposite.
Yes, you pay
Baseball
for what
is-
the guy's
is
already
done.
done. Oh, look at his back of his baseball card.
Look
He
at
hit three
Verlander. Look
right.
at what Scherzer has done.
Yeah.
Like, they get paid off of what they've done. It is the exact
Are
opposite.
you
in
showing
baseball.
off your ring?
No, I have a hangnail.
It's like,
2 questions.
look at my
Well,
ring.
it's not 2 questions. One statement. I love what you said when they paid Trey White initially, and it's like guys pay attention to who
In the room.
in the room of who they pay. I think that's very valid. And 2,
Mike was against paying Trey. He thought there were other people to pay first.
no, but he said like guys pay attention to in the locker room who gets paid. I think that's
I think that was me. Anyway,
okay. Either way. Secondly, Von Miller is at training camp. How surprised are you on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being I am shooketh.
That he's at camp.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I'm at level 6 that I'd be surprised.
I was going to say 7.7.
Wow. it's
Not
pretty
yet
high.
an 8, but I'd be pretty surprised.
Okay.
If this
So-
team is serious, if this team is serious about whether it's they have made decisions prior to get younger, like he's not an anchor. Like that's not fair to say, but what he brings has run its course.
Let's be blunt here. They have gotten rid of players that have given them more and they
Cost
liked
less.
more
Yeah.
as a player.
And have been less of a headache.
I mean, they cut Trey. They let Poyer walk. They let Micah Hyde basically retire. They let Tremaine Edmonds go into free agency. These are all guys that have contributed more to the Buffalo Bills franchise than Von Miller. No question. So at this point, you're right, Jenna. It's the resume. He's going to wear a gold jacket one day. That doesn't mean anything going into the 2025 season.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
If they're going to be a real Super Bowl contender and they see this as the window and all of these things, the window, it's always open. We talked about that. But if they see this as the next 3 years of being a real Super Bowl contender, as you break it up into, whether it's 3-4 year segments, is how you look at the cap and how you look at building your roster. I just don't see where he fits in besides a rotational guy that wants to make $6-7 million a year.
That's what I'm saying. I could see that him being back if that is the case. If he takes that much of a cut and it would be substantial. I agree, but I just don't think the market is like, if he wants to keep playing football, I don't think the market for him outside of the Bills is much. So if he makes and restructures his deal to be that, I would not be shocked if he was at training camp.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there. They don't want to pay these high-end guys. They go and get Von for cheap because Von is still will make his money for wherever. And then we will hear Von talking about Joe Burrow is the reason that he wants to come over there. And we will be hearing.
Well, that isn't exactly the team that it's going to lay out the big cash.
Correct.
That's what he's saying.
That's but point. In terms of, yes, I could also see him on the Baltimore Ravens.
Sure. I could definitely see him on the Ravens.
Because they
Lamar,
love,
man. Yeah. That boy's special. And it'll be press conference of
well, I mean, at least that team is closer, seemingly.
Yeah. And they may need a rotational
piece. Took a huge step back.
I could also see him going back to the Rams.
Sure.
I mean, there are just
what about
teams,
the Broncos?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess you're right. I don't know what the market would be for him.
But your point is a good one in a sense of saying he would be going there for less money than he's making now.
Exactly. He's 35 years old.
Listen, this team needs more production. And so if
he's about to be 36.
Yep.
Yes.
I just don't know.
I'm an 8. I now after I've talked myself into an 8.
I feel more anchored in the fact that he'll be back because I'm like, he'll probably, if he wants to keep playing football, the price is going to be low.
You never know what they say. They may have already made up their mind that they want to move on from him.
When Mike talks about Trey and all those guys that they made decisions on of, we love you, but we got to go in a different direction. I think this is a year that the Bills drastically need to overhaul their defensive line and figure it out. And Von, to me, is one of those things that they need to move on and figure out from.
I agree. I'm not saying it would be the right decision in my eyes to keep Von Miller on this roster, but I would not be surprised if he was kept on this roster.
Okay. Fair.
Okay, this last question is from Jordan Smith, Q1R. What do the Bills do in the draft change what you want them to do in free agency? So essentially, I think this is an important point because free agency, why don't you explain to everyone?
Well, I mean, free agency's first.
Exactly.
It's making decisions on your own guys, then making decisions on other players because we all know, you can have a plan and then you get punched in the mouth, Mike Tyson, right? You think, oh, we're going to go after this guy. And then within 5 minutes, he's signing with another team. Like people can always have those plans. But in terms of that, a guy like Rasul Douglas is a good idea. It's like, do the Bills want to bring him back? Do they let him look and see what's out there? What's his relationship with the team that he looks around and goes, I'd rather come back? Like, you never know how that plays out. But all of this happens pretty quickly. And there are guys who I think the team knows right away. They get the first offer they get, they're gone. So they're not waiting for them to come back. I think Rasul could be that kind of player because he's at that age where, like, he gets a good offer, he's going. He's going to go. And I would too if I was him.
I think he does have a market as opposed to a Von Miller, who at this point does not have the same pull that a guy like Rasul Douglas would have.
But it is this window, and there's been people talking about they should have the draft first and then free agency. I don't think the players want that.
No.
Players want, say, you pay us.
You want to
first.
fill cheap labor?
Yeah.
You can fill cheap roster spots and draft picks?
So they like it the way it is. It just happens to play out that way.
Do you think if the Bills don't get a big free agent defensive end signing and they draft a guy, they would want to keep Von Miller on to in like a mentor, that type of role?
Nope.
I don't. Okay. I mean, look.
It's an
I think
expensive.
I
bleeping
agree.
mentor.
I agree. I'm saying you rework the contract either way.
the Bills
You
had.
rework the baseline of this experiment is he would have to take a lot less money.
I think
I
the
think that's
Bills have had
important.
in the time you guys have been covering the team in this recent time, Bean McDermott time. They've had one mentor on the whole roster, and that was Micah Hyde this year.
Yep.
Because that was his role. Otherwise, do guys learn off of him? Absolutely. You learn by watching them play. Like there's only so many guys playing. And if you're one of those guys that's on the 46 and you're playing every week, you're there to play.
That's fair. I get it. I don't know. There's just something in my head that's like, what if he's at camp? Like, what if he's a part of this team?
He absolutely could be.
I know.
Right.
I'm just saying you guys make it seem like it's preposterous. That's why I'm like, I don't think it's that crazy.
No, because I think we're both in a thought of this team needs to be better on that line. He has not provided that. To think he's going to provide it now as he's a year older, at some point you cut bait and that's it. What's that phrase?
Yeah, cut bait. I think that's right. I would have said cut bait.
Yeah.
It's a fishing analogy. Look at us.
My dad used to say,
is it cut line?
You got this or get off the pot.
Shit.
Yeah.
That can be, everyone has a shit thing that they say.
Yes. But at that point, yes, he's not getting younger. I think he's now removed from the knee injury. He's an older player now.
Okay. I don't think it's that insane. And I feel like you guys are making me feel like it's.
No, I don't think it's that insane that he could
crazy.
be there. I'm saying is if they really are serious about fixing this D-line and the pass
agree.
rush, they're moving on from him.
Agree.
Can I say one more thing? Because I know like we're all agreeing on the same thing.
Yeah.
My one last point is how many players do you list when we always joke around about that? The dude off, like list how many dudes each team has.
No,
you have to go pretty far down the list before you mention Von Miller's name as.
See,
as
I don't agree with that because I think I hate when you get so reactive where you're like, oh, what do you mean? No, here's what I'm saying.
Time?
Oh, what do you mean?
One more time with feeling?
No. What I mean is, I think to a casual fan, you still think of, when you look at the production, absolutely Von Miller should not be on that list. But if you're thinking of a casual fan listing names, he's always going to be a name.
He's a dino.
He's always going to be a name.
The fudge is a dino.
Dude in name only.
Oh, that's good, Michael.
He is.
Wow.
Well,
it's the opposite of it. It's not. No, it's not the opposite of a jag, but it's like jag full circle.
And listen, this is not.
Jag is just a guy.
Yeah,
I know
Jags
it's hard
turn
to
into dinos.
It's hard to say
No.
Oh no, it'd be
dinos. No.
Dinos turn into jags. They become a dino. The reason I'm saying
would it be like a flow chart?
Hey, he is one of the all-time great pass rushers. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's where he has kept that reputation. It's hard to be that guy at 36.
Yeah.
He's in incredible shape, all those things. There is a point where it just doesn't happen anymore. And this team needs to be better. It is the glaring weakness of the team.
It is.
So I just think they have to use those resources better. That's the only reason. And I say this, can the guy still play in the NFL? Yes.
Absolutely.
But it should be somewhere else for the Bills.
That's fair. I agree. So I think people would list him, Dan, but I think you're right. If you look at the stats and how much of an impact he's made on the field, absolutely you should keep him out of the list of dudes. But I just think when someone becomes a household name, they're going to stay a household name.
Yes.
Name. Household name. I feel like there's like
he's the kind of guy.
I respectfully disagree. I understand your point, but it's like when you talk about the dudes on the Jets, I don't mention Aaron Rodgers.
But a lot of people would. That's what I'm saying.
A lot of people are stupid.
It's the guy that Stephen A. Smith knows on the team.
Yeah.
Exactly. And people will
Stephen A. be like, Vaughn was so electric, that boy.
Yeah.
Watch out for him coming off the edge. Like when? On third down every once in a blue moon?
Yeah. It's like when they had.
You're not wrong. I think we're both right. Like
I agree. I'm just also like when I don't take any weight in what dumb people say.
A good example of that.
There's a hot take for you.
I would say this is a good example of that is you ask people who don't really pay attention to the Bills, they will tell you that Matt Milano is better than Terrell Bernard.
That is true.
And
he's not.
1,000%. But that's like the national media talk about Matt Milano, who is a good player, but they don't even mention Terrell Bernard because they haven't watched enough Bills tape to know that Terrell Bernard.
It was like when Darcel Marius was here.
That's right.
People know
this was
Stephen A.
This was a
Darcel Marius.
This was a strong end.
That was funny. All right. With feeling.
What?
So
when you were like, do it again with feeling.
Yeah. So if we wrap this up,
Dad used to do.
I interrupted Jenna, but you pissed her off more.
Oh, 100%.
So it was good.
100%.
I just don't.
Jenna had to sneeze so bad, and she was afraid to interrupt you, so she held her sneeze in.
That was very nice. Thank you. I appreciate
I didn't think
that.
you could actually sneeze. Like when we're on TV, I've never had to sneeze, knock on wood.
I have never sneezed on
I
there.
think like your body knows.
Hall
though.
of Famer.
It'll probably
that's why he's a Hall of Famer.
I've coughed on the air.
Well, yeah, same.
And
that time when you they're like the open rolls and you're like,
yeah,
swallow. And it's like, oh, I'm so screwed.
Get me to a sound bite.
Like, oh my God. You just sit there. Jen and I always joke around that, like, when you write something for like at 3 o'clock for the 6 o'clock news and you don't change anything, and then it gets to be 11 o'clock, and you're like, what did I write 8 hours ago? And you're like, oh boy.
Oh yeah.
This is gonna be tough.
Buckle up.
Buckle up.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to wrap this up. You believe that they are going to make a big play for a defensive end.
Yep.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You believe Von Miller is still a dude.
No, you're putting words in my mouth.
Okay, so fix it for me. People believe Von Miller's still a dude.
No, I think
you didn't give your number.
I think Von Miller could be on the roster.
I think he could be too.
Okay, I asked you how surprised you would be. You guys made it seem
I said
like
6.
Well, surprised.
Dan said almost an 8.
Surprised and could. Contractually, he could be there. Like that's.
I know, but
what's your number then?
What I would pay Von Miller to stay on the
No,
Bills?
no. How surprised
1
you
to
would
10.
be.
You said shook it.
I would
Where
be. I would be a 4. I'd be like, okay, yeah. That's how I feel.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. If he's still on the roster, that means they did not make a play for a big defensive end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if they don't do it. What I want them to do and what I expect them to do, there is obviously a gap in there.
By the way, we said all this talk to this long. I'm in agreement with that. I just don't think they're going to be able to make that move for the guy you would want at defensive end.
I hope I'm pleasantly surprised.
Oh, and by the way, the Browns say he's not going to be traded.
Yeah,
That's
of course.
BS. They're going to trade him.
Of course.
They're going to trade him.
Yeah, exactly.
I broke my headphones making that funny face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Way to go, Dan.
Yeah. Karma. All right. For my Catalana and Dan Fetes, I am Jenna Cottrell. Really? Oh my gosh. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you
we
fine.
hear fine.
Actually, let's turn him down. Thank you so much for watching You Ask, We Answer, presented by Stellar Roofing, Windows, and Siding. We will catch you next time. These guys are headed off to Indy. Real quick, order at Elmo's.
Shrimp cocktail?
Of course.
Then it's the navy bean soup is so much better. I
Sounds
don't
like a Great Depression food.
It is, but it's so good.
Yeah.
Really?
It's not what I never would have ordered it.
And I don't like beans at all. And there are beans in there.
It's so
I
good.
figured.
But there's also the walked into that one. Hey, touche. Got me there. The other option is tomato juice, which I thought would be like tomato soup. No, it's shot
tomato juice.
It's a shot glass of tomato juice.
I like tomato juice, but that bean soup is
that's good. And
is there like pork or something, like bacon in it, or
of
like
the tomato soup? No,
no, the bean soup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And then I do the strip with mashed potatoes.
Sounds good.
I just watched a whole video on how you should never order New York strip at a restaurant.
Really?
It's my favorite cut.
Yeah. Talks about the different ways. And it was very interesting to hear people very into it.
Also, how are we ordering it?
Oh,
medium plus.
Medium well, or medium
rare
plus.
What
medium.
steak do you get?
Well, it depends. Like I've gotten the filet before, which is outstanding.
I like a little more fat.
Yeah.
That's
I
why
like
the
filet.
Yeah.
I don't really know the other kinds, if I'm being honest. I
You
don't
don't
like.
like
I don't ever
Porter,
order
prime rib.
I will say I
prime.
don't.
I kind of like prime rib, but
Yeah.
isn't it like really fatty?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I
yeah.
also don't like ordering the petite cut because I feel like
Yeah.
it's Dan at Starbucks with his order.
Oh, the upside down caramel macchiato.
Yeah, it's like, oh, here's your petite cut, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound good.
I order a petite cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly because
There's a ricochet shot here about my coffee order, which Jenna likes.
yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
'cause she's a
I also
girl.
ordered the petite cut.
walked
that
in
was yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next time here on Buffalo Plus, presented by Connors and Ferris. Forgot that for a second. We'll start with this question from Robin.
So there's still a damn good defense.
I have zero problem with them bringing this guy in.